Welcome back to the Book Nook listener. As young parents, there's always something on your mind, like how to handle toddler discipline. I mean, you're dealing with these big emotions, right? And
Yeah.
the constant boundary testing, and you just want to find good ways to guide those little ones.
So for this deep dive, we're taking a look at No Bad Kids by Janet Lansbury. It offers a really refreshing perspective.
Right.
It moves away from those traditional punishments and really tries to get us to understand what our toddlers need as they grow and develop.
Exactly. We want to break down Lansbury's main ideas and give you listeners some practical strategies that you can use every day. Hopefully make these years a little less stressful. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're going to look at why toddlers do those things that push our buttons and how we can actually communicate with them in a way that they get. And we're also going to explore some alternative discipline methods because, let's face it, sometimes those go-to methods don't feel so good, right? So think of this deep dive as like a cheat sheet to figuring out what's going on in your toddler's world and building a relationship that's more connected and respectful. So let's just jump right into Lansbury's big idea, the No Bad Kids philosophy.
Yeah, the foundation of this, and it's really influenced by Magda Gerber's RI approach. Have you heard of RE?
I have.
It stands for Resources for Infant Educators. It's about respecting each child as their own person right from the start as a baby. Anyway, Lansbury says this. There are no bad kids, just impressionable, conflicted young people wrestling with emotions and impulses. And this is a big change for some parents who maybe think their kid is just acting out on purpose.
Yeah, because when you're in the middle of a tantrum at the grocery store, right? It's so easy to think they're doing it on purpose just to push your buttons.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. But Lansbury says that when toddlers push those limits, it's normal. It's a part of growing up. It's how they figure out the world and their own limits, and maybe most importantly, how they start to understand that they're their own person with their own wants and power. They're not bad. They're not trying to make you crazy.
So it's not about them being naughty. It's about them figuring out where they fit in and how they relate to us.
Exactly. And when we as parents guide them in a way that makes them feel safe and secure, something really interesting happens. Lansbury says they don't need to test those boundaries so much anymore. They learn to trust you to handle things, and that makes them trust the world around them. When they feel safe, they can focus on all the good stuff, playing and learning and making friends and being those awesome little kids that we love. The big idea here is that a toddler's behavior, even when it seems defiant, is often their way of asking for reassurance and clear boundaries. You can respond calmly and build that trust.
Okay, so that changes things. Instead of trying to control their behavior, we should focus on making them feel secure enough to explore and learn without those power struggles all the time, right? Okay, let's talk about something I think every parent struggles with, our own emotions when all of this is happening.
This is such a great point. How much do our own emotions as parents play into how our kids react when we try to set limits? Lansbury says it's huge. It almost always affects their response. If we're not sure of ourselves, if we're tense or stressed, or if we lose it quickly, our kids pick up on it. And it actually makes them feel less secure, which leads to even more of the behaviors we're trying to stop.
Oh, I've totally seen that happen. Like when I'm already feeling stressed and then there's even a little bit of pushing limits from my kid,
Yeah,
it blows up way faster than usual. It's like they know I'm on edge.
Exactly. It's like they're tuned into our feelings. Lansbury has this powerful line. She says, "We are gods in our children's eyes, and our feelings always set the tone." That just hits you right. It means how well we handle our own emotions really affects our kids. Realizing this can change everything. It can help us break those frustrating cycles. If we can just approach these moments feeling calmer and more confident, it makes a difference in how our kid reacts.
So even though it's so hard when you're tired and haven't showered and, just knowing that our own emotions matter, that's a good first step. Okay, so we've talked about toddlers not being bad and how our emotions matter. Now let's talk about why they push limits in the first place. Lansbury says there are some common reasons.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You know what? Seems like just plain defiance can come from different places. One of the biggest is, she calls it SOS, I can't function. Often kids act up because they're just tired or hungry, even if they don't know it themselves. Their little bodies are saying, "Hey, I need something." And sometimes that comes out as bad behavior. This really shows how important routines are and how we need to have realistic expectations for our toddlers. We can't expect them to be perfect little angels when we take them to a late dinner or drag them on a long shopping trip when they're probably exhausted and hungry.
That makes sense. I feel like so many meltdowns at my house happen right before nap time or when someone missed a snack.
Another reason Lansbury talks about is that toddlers are always testing leadership and love. It's like they're constantly trying to figure out the boundaries we set and what we expect from them and where their power is in the family. So when you react calmly and consistently, it actually reassures them. It's like they're asking, are you still in charge? Can I trust you to keep me safe?
So all that testing and pushing is actually a way for them to make sure we're still there for them and love them no matter what. That's interesting.
It is. And sometimes it's about how we react. Sometimes we overreact or give these big lectures or what Lansbury calls dramas over small things. And that can actually encourage the behavior because the kids are getting a big reaction from us, and that can be what they want. She says to keep our answers short and simple, like we're just stating facts.
So less is more when it comes to those little moments.
Totally. Lansbury also says that sometimes toddlers push limits because they have all these big feelings and stress inside that they can't express with words yet. They need to get it out somehow. So it's really important to hold those boundaries calmly, but let them show those emotions. She says all feelings allowed. They need a safe way to let those feelings out.
So even if they're having a tantrum, we shouldn't punish them for those feelings, right?
The feelings themselves aren't bad. It's how they show them that sometimes needs our guidance. She also talks about modeling. Kids are little sponges. They see how we act and they copy us. So if we grab things when we're mad, they might start grabbing things too. We have to be careful about what we do ourselves.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. You really see yourself in their behavior.
It's a mirror. Lansbury also says that sometimes it's just seeking attention. Acting up can be a way to get you to notice them, even if it's in a negative way, especially if they feel like they haven't been getting enough positive attention. And finally, she asks this really powerful question. Have you told me that you love me lately? Sometimes toddlers act out because they feel ignored or like they're not connected to you. So showing them patience and empathy, really accepting them and being genuinely interested in what they're doing is so important. Loving toddlers, she says, means really knowing them and understanding what might be behind their actions.
That's a much deeper look at why toddlers do what they do than I ever thought about. When you understand all those reasons, it can really change how you handle those moments.
Right.
So knowing all that, how can we communicate effectively with toddlers, especially when we're setting limits?
Lansbury has some specific guidelines that are helpful. She says it's important to speak directly and use I statements. Instead of saying, Mommy doesn't like it when you hit, you could say, I won't let you do that. This makes the boundary clear and it comes directly from you.
That makes sense. It's not some random rule. It's coming right from the person who cares for them.
Exactly. She also says to acknowledge how they're feeling and what they want even when you're setting a limit. Like you could say, I know you really want to keep playing outside and it's hard to come in, I get it. But it's time to go inside now. It shows you're listening, even if they don't get their way.
Just feeling heard, even if they don't get what they want, can make a big difference in how they react.
Big time. And when you're talking about their feelings, she says to stick to what you see instead of assuming you know how they feel. Like saying, you seem upset by the loud noise is better than saying you're afraid of the loud noise. It lets them have their own experience and you're not putting words in their mouth.
So it's all about being clear, direct, and understanding. Okay, let's talk about actual discipline strategies. Lansbury has some interesting alternatives to punishment.
The big thing here is that Lansbury moves away from punishment as the main way to guide behavior. Her focus is on creating a safe and predictable environment. She talks about predictable environment and realistic expectations. Routines help toddlers know what's coming, which makes them feel safe and in control, and that helps them behave better. She also says to give immediate matter-of-fact responses. When they cross a line, you give a clear, simple statement calmly, and if you need to physically stop them from doing something, like, I won't let you hit your brother, my job is to keep everyone safe, and the key is to do it right away.
So being consistent and reacting quickly is important.
Absolutely. And then there's the idea of natural consequences. Lansbury believes that toddlers learn best when they experience the natural results of their actions. Like if they throw their food, mealtime might be over. If they don't want to get dressed, maybe they don't get to go to the park. It's fair and they understand it.
Those kinds of consequences make sense even to a little kid.
Right. Another important guideline is allowing emotional expression. Lansbury says we shouldn't punish kids for crying or having tantrums. Those are just big feelings coming out. She suggests giving them a safe place to let it all out. Maybe even a pillow to punch if they need to get those feelings out physically.
So it's okay to have the feelings, but we might need to help them express those feelings in a safe way, especially if they're hurting themselves or others.
Exactly. And Lansbury is really big on unconditional love. She says never take away affection as punishment because it teaches kids that love depends on them being good, and that can make them feel resentful and insecure. And she's very clear about no spanking. She talks about studies that show how spanking hurts trust and actually makes kids more aggressive. You can't inflict pain and say it's out of love.
That's a strong and important message. So what about timeout? Lots of parents use that. What does Lansbury say?
Lansbury agrees with Magda Gerber, who said that timeout can be confusing for little kids. Gerber asked, time out of what? Time out of life. Lansbury says that if a kid is acting up in public, it probably means they're overwhelmed and need to leave. At home, if they're having a tantrum, they might need a quiet, safe space to let it out. But it's not a punishment, it's about supporting them. You stay with them and offer comfort, but you don't need to get involved in the tantrum itself.
So you see their needs in that moment instead of just isolating them for being bad.
Exactly. And let's talk about the word no. Sometimes gentle parenting approaches try to avoid it.
Yeah, I've heard that we should use more positive language whenever possible.
And while that's good in a lot of situations, Lansbury says that no is a healthy word for toddlers to hear and even to use themselves as they learn to be more independent. It's okay to say it when you need to set a clear boundary, but when you can, offering choices is a great way to help them cooperate.
So give them some control within the limits you're setting.
Right. She also has some interesting thoughts about timers, which a lot of parents use to help with transitions or limiting activities.
Yeah, I know lots of parents who swear by timers. What does Lansbury say about them?
She's concerned that while timers seem helpful, they can sometimes make the connection between you and your child less personal, and they can rush the child's natural sense of time. Like, would you use a timer with another adult? She says it can sometimes make kids anxious and take away from the fun of what they're doing.
That's a good point about how it affects the relationship. Now, staying calm when your toddler is being a toddler, that's a superpower I think every parent wishes they had.
It is a superpower. And Lansbury says it's all about how we look at it. If we see this limit pushing as normal and healthy, their way of becoming more independent and not as them defying us, it's easier to stay calm. And seeing those conflicts and big emotions as a chance for them to express themselves instead of something scary that we need to shut down helps too. And we have to be realistic about what's normal for toddlers. She gives this great advice. Act as if you're calm and capable even when you don't feel it. Our kids pick up on our attitude.
Take it till you make it, but like in a mindful parenting kind of way.
Exactly. And then there's that classic toddler sound, the whining.
Oh yeah, the whining. It can drive you up the wall sometimes.
Lansbury says whining is often a sign that something's wrong. Maybe they're tired or hungry or overstimulated, or it could be like the warning sign before a bigger emotional outburst. She says to stay with your child, but try to ignore the whining itself. See if you can figure out what they need and help them with that. And giving them regular one-on-one attention when they're not whining can help prevent them from using whining to get your attention in the first place.
So being proactive with positive attention can actually help reduce the whining. Makes sense. Now, meal times can be a real struggle for parents of toddlers. What does Lansbury say about food issues?
Lansbury is very clear that toddlers need to have some control over what and how much they eat. She says don't force them to eat because that usually makes them resist even more and creates anxiety around food. She suggests keeping meals pretty simple, offering a variety of healthy choices in small portions, and respecting their cues when they're full. And like we talked about before, if they throw food calmly in the meal, that's the natural consequence.
Letting them decide how much they eat is a big change for some parents, but it sounds like it can help avoid those battles at the dinner table. Now, what about when they start talking back or being bossy? That can be surprising.
Lansbury sees this as another way toddlers test their power and show that they're individuals. It's part of growing up. She says try not to take it personally or get into power struggles with them. Sometimes the best thing to do is just not react too much. That takes the wind out of their sails. You can give a lighthearted response like, well, it seems like we have different opinions on that. The important thing is to make sure they still feel safe and loved even when they're using those challenging words.
So instead of arguing, just deflect it. And then there are the really big emotional moments, the tantrums.
Lansbury really stresses that tantrums aren't about defying you or attacking you personally. They're just huge releases of emotions that toddlers can't control yet. The best thing we can do is be calm and present and let the tantrum happen without trying to stop it too soon. Of course, if they're going to hurt themselves or someone else, you have to step in and set a limit. And after they've calmed down, it helps to acknowledge their feelings. You could say you were so upset that you couldn't have that toy.
Just be a calm, steady presence during their storm. That's a great image. So one of the biggest changes for a family is when a new baby comes along. How does that affect toddler discipline?
A new baby is a big deal for a toddler, and they often act differently while they're adjusting. Lansbury says we should encourage them to express any negative feelings they have about the baby, even if they seem okay with it on the surface. And don't make them feel guilty about needing to be a big brother or big sister. Try to let go of the little things when they fight with the baby, as long as everyone's safe. And maybe most importantly, spend some one-on-one time with the older child so they know you still love them.
So make sure they still feel important, even with all the attention on the baby. That's so important. So Lansbury also talks about some common mistakes parents make with toddler discipline.
Oh, yeah, we're all learning and we all make mistakes. Some of the big ones Lansbury points out are using punishments too much, including those consequences that are really just punishments. Those erode trust and don't really teach kids anything good. Another mistake is thinking kids are being bad on purpose instead of seeing that they might be struggling and need our help. And not setting clear limits early on can lead to more yelling and frustration later. And lastly, giving too many chances before you actually enforce a limit can make you seem less in charge and confuse your child.
So it sounds like being a gentle leader, like Lansbury talks about, is really important.
Absolutely. Being a strong, confident leader makes your child feel safe. It's about setting reasonable limits that you stick to, staying calm when things get tough, acknowledging their point of view without arguing, and then following through with gentle but firm actions when you need to, like saying, I won't let you do that. And remember that some defiance is normal and healthy at this age.
This has been such an insightful look at No Bad Kids. It really offers a new way to understand and guide our toddlers. That's more about empathy.
We hope this deep dive gave you, our listeners, some helpful ideas and practical tips that you can use as you navigate the ups and downs of parenting a toddler. Remember those times when they're testing limits? It's not because they're bad, it's because they're growing and learning. If you focus on understanding their needs and communicating clearly and with empathy and set boundaries with confidence and love, you can build a strong and trusting relationship with your little one.
There's so much more in No Bad Kids. Lots of examples and ways to handle different toddler behaviors. So if this was helpful and you want to learn more about Janet Lansbury's respectful approach to parenting, we really encourage you to read the book. It's got a lot of great information and support for you on your parenting journey.